Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new, and welcome back to another day of vlogmas. In today's video, I'm going to get ready with you guys and share 7 tips that I find really help my makeup look better. These are going to be tips that I feel like will help you if you struggle with having a good makeup day most of the time. We all have a bad makeup day here and there, but I feel like I would go through a few patches there where I would have just like weeks on end of feeling like my makeup wasn't looking like I wanted it to. So these are going to be tips that hopefully can help you guys out if you struggle with anything that I mentioned today. So let's go ahead and jump into it with the first tip. Tip number 1 for me is to use a good primer. I know some people feel like primer is not a necessary step, but for me, in my opinion, I think it makes a really big difference, or it can, depending on what you're putting on top of it. Now, for me, a primer can honestly just be like a priming SPF. So either one of these SPF products, I feel like is a really good base for makeup. Currently, I'm using the Kopari Antioxidant Face Shield because it expires in January, so I'm trying to use it up. But I also love this one from Purito. This is the daily go-to sunscreen. It even has a higher SPF coverage than the Kopari one. But if you just want a primer and you already have your SPF figured out, then this Wet n Wild Glass Correct is my current favorite right now, and it's only $7. The key with all of these is that they're very moisturizing. So when I put them on the face, they're gonna make my skin look like I just put on a moisturizer. So an alternative option to this would just be to apply a moisturizer to your skin before you do your makeup. Now, my favorite one would be the Glow Recipe Plump. That is my favorite one right now, but I understand that that's more high end. I don't have a favorite drugstore moisturizer, but that one is really great for underneath makeup. But I would say a more lightweight moisturizer is going to be better for underneath makeup. So if you're just wanting something affordable that kind of gives that same sort of effect, I would still direct you towards the Wet n Wild one. But overall, I think just start out with a hydrated base. I am going to use my Kopari one today just because I do need to use this up. So I want to apply a pretty generous amount of this. This is 3 pumps from the product. And especially with SPF, you do not want to be light-handed. But for this product, I'm just going to blend this in with my hands. My skin is extremely dry today and I don't have any moisturizer on yet, so I'm actually just going to apply a little bit more of the SPF. And I want to make sure to put this everywhere. I feel like my most missed area of applying a primer is my temples, and if I do that, I will notice patching or skipping of my foundation on like the temple area of my face. So I want to make sure to really put this everywhere, especially down the neck as well. Now I do have really dry skin, but even if your skin is more oily, I still think having a hydrated base can be a really great option for you. Maybe just don't get one that's like super glowy, but it's just more like hydrating, like a moisturizer. But now that I've got this all over the skin, my face feels very nice and hydrated, so I'm ready for foundation and the rest of my makeup to go on top of it. I'm going to let the SPF sink into my skin while I talk to you about my next tip, which revolves around foundation. So first things first, I think with foundation, if you're struggling with it to look good, I would suggest not going for a very mattifying foundation and also not going for a very dewy foundation. I would look for something that's right there in the middle, maybe like a medium coverage, a satin or a natural finish, something like that. I wouldn't really go for like a full coverage with a matte finish or anything like that. And I would just kind of avoid both ends of the spectrum there and go for something right in the middle. My perfect suggestion for the foundation in this category, and this kind of like the perfect satin finish one, would be from Kokie. It's the HD Perfect, but unfortunately I've used that one up, so today I'm going to be using the ColourPop Pretty Fresh. I also think this is a really good option for the type of foundation I was just describing, because this is a very nice like medium coverage, but it's pretty buildable, and I feel like it has a nice satin finish. So I think it would work for anyone, like no matter what your skin type is, whether you have dry or oily or combination or normal skin. I think this would work really well for everyone. I think just using light layers is a really great option. As I mentioned, this one is very buildable, so just use a light layer at first, which leads us to our next tip, which is when you're applying your layers, I think it's a good idea to spread it out with your finger first. I've been noticing more people doing this lately, but I started doing it and I've noticed a really big help. So I'm just gonna pump some of this product on my hand. The pump on this one gives you a lot of product, so I'm just taking half a pump at first, and I'm going to disperse that between my 2 cheeks. I don't apply usually, sometimes I will, but I typically don't go straight to the forehead with product because I find that that makes my makeup crease a lot. I've got pretty deep set wrinkles right here between my brows and I've got a couple on my forehead as well. So I just apply it to the cheeks, and then my next tip is to, like I said, spread this out with your finger first. I don't like to blend it all the way in with my finger, but spreading it out across the cheeks seems to help not lose so much of the product when I go in with a sponge, and it also just helps it to not be so patchy if you struggle with that, is what I've noticed. So I always use a damp sponge with my foundation. I'm a much more sponge type of person than a brush person, but if you guys have oily skin, you might like a brush for this step, but I'm just going to blend everything out with my sponge now. So adding this light layer, you can still see my redness coming through. So once we get everything blended out, you could definitely add a little bit more. Working with light layers is something that I really have to think about because I can tend to just like add a whole pump on and go in to blend it out, and it can look cakey. So I think working with light layers and then adding it if you still want it, if you have redness on your skin or anything, you know, that you're wanting to give some extra coverage to, you could definitely still do that. But I just really want to work with light layers. And I'm also trying to remind myself that I can always add concealer. I also go ahead and bring my foundation up all around the eye area. I know some people don't do this, but for me, I find that if I don't, I later have a harder time getting everything to look really seamless, and sometimes I end up having some blending issues around the eyes. And I've also pulled this up onto my forehead by this point, once it's already been on my sponge, but you see I didn't add any product directly to the forehead. So just to show you that this product is buildable, I'm just gonna add a little bit more. So I'm not taking very much at all. And I'm going to put this again on the cheeks. Especially my left cheek just has the worst redness, but I will add a little bit to the right side as well. And again, I'm just gonna spread this out so it doesn't look like there's a puddle of foundation left on the skin. And then I'm going to blend that in with the same sponge. So that kind of took care of a little bit more of the redness, but I can also always add some concealer if I want it. I'm gonna also run the sponge over my nose with a little bit of that product and then blend out the other side. Another tip too, when you're dampening your sponge, make sure like you're spending, you know, a good 10 or 15 seconds with the sponge under the water and like really wring it out and then get it wet again and keep kind of squishing it to get a lot of water in. But then when you get done, really squish your sponge and get all of the water that's just loose in there, get it out, because it can make your foundation really break apart. So you shouldn't feel like your sponge has like water droplets in it. It should just feel nice and squishy and damp. So that could help too. We're getting into more than 7 tips here, so hopefully some of these will be helpful for you. Let me give you a closer look at how the skin is looking right now. You can definitely still see a little bit of redness, but this foundation itself is sitting really nicely on the skin, I would say. So now we can go in with concealer. For concealer, I'm just going to use this one from Rare Beauty. I don't have any particular concealer tips for this video, but I'm just going to apply this on the under eye area and kind of into that center portion. I've got a lot of like blueness in the under eyes. And then I will go ahead and do a couple dots just on this left cheek. I'm not going to worry about covering the redness here because I'm going to put blush on, so it kind of, you know, works out in that way. But again, working in light layers with concealer, I didn't apply like too much anywhere. I might have put a little bit more than I usually would around the eye area, but it's because I've got really blue under eyes today. Again, I'm just going to blend that out with the same sponge. And I'm going to go ahead and bring concealer up to the eyelids as well because I'm not going to add a particular eyeshadow base today. I'm going for like a pretty everyday sort of a look, so I'm not worried about an eyeshadow primer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of powder. This is the CoverGirl Clean Fresh. This is a really great pressed powder if you're in the need for one. This is, I think, my second one. I'm almost done with it. It's definitely at least my second one, but I don't think it's my third one yet. So for powder, I'm actually just going to set the eye area. I'm not going to set the whole face because I'm going to be adding powder products as my cheek products, so I don't want to add too much powder. That can make your makeup look really cakey. Now, I will say if you have oily skin, this might be a step that you want to do. Like, you might want to powder your whole face. I think this is a great powder for that, but as I've mentioned 3 times already in this video, I've got very dry skin, so I don't personally want to do that, and I want to just kind of wait and see at the end if I need it. So I'm just powdering on the eyelid, under the eyes, and then I'll take it a little bit by the nose. I am dealing with some allergies now, so I anticipate rubbing my nose a little bit today, so I might try and press it down just to help that. Not powdering the whole face can also just, in my opinion, make your face look a little bit more natural and radiant without looking like super dewy with the products we've put on right now. I think it just looks very healthy this way. But our next tip is about brows. Several of you guys have left comments on my videos in the last several weeks talking about how you want to see brow routines because that's the part of your makeup routine that seems the most difficult to you. I've got you covered in today's video because I used to feel that way too. And I feel like most days I do have good brow days now, so I want to share kind of what I do to create a pretty seamless brow routine for myself every single day. So for my brows, I use 3 products. Now, you can definitely get away with using less products. If you want to see an even simpler brow routine, check out my video from 2 days ago. That was a beginner makeup tutorial, but in today's video, I'm going to show you guys how I do my brows every single day. I sometimes will switch it up, but pretty much you will see me using the 3 of these products. So the first thing I do is start out with a brow pencil. I used to not do this, but I've been really enjoying it over the last like 6 months or so. This is the NYX Micro Brow Pencil. I have mine in the shade Cool Ash Brown. If you're struggling with your brows not looking like the right shade, NYX has really good products that are more cool toned, because I used to find that like all the brow products I would use would be way too warm tone or red in my brows, and I really hated the way it looked. But I've noticed that NYX specifically has the best shades of brow products that work for me. So the first thing I want to do is take the spoolie from the other end of the brow pencil, and I want to brush through the brows. So I like to brush mine up and then kind of away like towards my ear. Once the arch comes up, kind of brush them down. So now they look a little bit more like how I want them to look. So now I can take the pencil. Now for the pencil, occasionally I will use this for the whole brow, but I never tend to like my brow as much when I use just the pencil. I really like the brow marker, which I'll show you in a minute. So my main tip for brows, because everyone has different brow shapes and also everyone usually has different brow styles that they want to go for. So this for me is just enhancing what my brows look like, and I try not to like overdraw them or underdraw them or anything like that. I do have them shaped like a little bit, but they've grown out some, so they're not perfectly shaped. So my biggest tip is to hold your mirror far away, or to not even look in a mirror like this. Like I have to because I'm filming, but if you do your brows at a vanity like I do, like when you do your makeup, just look in the mirror that's at that same kind of distance away from you as you would be sitting at a vanity. The farther away that I am when I look at my brows seems to be the best, because if I'm looking like with it here and my mirror is right in front, I am much more likely to have a very, very bold looking brow, and that's not what I'm going for. But if I hold my mirror out, or if I use the mirror that's on the wall, then I can see just the shape overall that I'm going for, and then I can use lighter strokes on the brow pencil and just kind of fill in what's noticeable. Because odds are no one is getting this close to look at your brows, so you're wanting them to look good and how you want them to look from basically the distance of which I'm filming, like an arm's length. So that's what I have found to be the best help. So I just want to hold the brow pencil like towards the end, so I'm using a lighter hand, and I just want to fill in any areas that seem a little bit sparse. So in comparison, this is filled in and this is not. And I haven't done any jump cuts or anything like that where I've not been talking, so it's just taken me like a couple of seconds. And if you have more sparse parts, you know, you might spend a bit more time with this, but where I like to spend more time on my brows is the front portion. So the part for me filling in doesn't take so long. So I just want to fill them in from like here backwards with the pencil. I'm using a very light hand, and I'm looking at it from roughly an arm's length. Maybe my arm has a little bit of bend in it, but I really think the farther back you're looking, typically, the better it looks. Now, if you have an area where you're like, okay, I want to pay attention to this arch right here, or to make sure I'm not missing the line down here, like you might want to add, you know, a few little hair-like strokes there, you know, might get closer, but for the most part, I just have the best luck when I do them from farther away. So that's all I want to do with the brow pencil. It's probably why it lasts me for so long. Then next up, I want to use a brow marker. I really like the shade of this one, by the way. So I've got the NYX Lift and Snatch brow tint pen in the shade Ash Brown. So again, this one is not too warm tone. It's ashy, as the name would suggest. And this one is more of like a felt tip pen. So you can really draw on hair-like strokes with this. And this is what I use on the front portion of the brows. And again, I'm holding my mirror like decently far away so you guys can hopefully see. Let's see if I can show you, like, kind of hard to show you how far I'm holding it, but I will just hold the mirror up and then use the brow marker to draw those hair-like strokes. And I try to use like the very, very light hand, but I kind of want to do like the first stroke of how far I want the brow to come in and do that one first, and then just start filling them in. But the key here again is to not do it like this, because it will be more bold, I promise, than you're wanting it. And I'll kind of blend it in a little bit with where I put the pencil. But see, now I feel like it kind of just looks like that's how my brow is supposed to look, but I like it to come in a little bit farther than they naturally do. So that's how I like to add it in. Okay, so mine are a little bit grown out versus very, very groomed right now. So they're a little bit more bushy than I typically would like them, but I haven't gotten them threaded in a while. So that's how I like to fill them in. And then I want to lock it in place with a clear brow gel. My favorite one is this one from Anastasia, which I actually bought a new one. This one's empty. So I bought a new mini of it. Now the mini of the Anastasia one, even though Anastasia is a high-end brand, the mini is only $9 and it'll last you for a long time. So if you're looking for a really good brow gel, I do suggest this one. I also recently picked up the NYX Control Freak for $9, which is a larger product than this, but I have not been really loving it. So I just brush this one through the brows, and I brush the front portions kind of up, and then towards the end I'll kind of pull them down towards the ear again, and they just really set the brows into place. But yeah, I'm not really loving that NYX one yet, whereas this Anastasia one, I have now used up one of this size, the little bitty mini, and a full size, and I'm still coming back to it. I still really like it. And anytime I try a new one, I just miss this one. So I think it's a really solid brow gel. So just kind of brush them up. And at this point, if you notice like you might have missed a spot, you can always just go in with that brow marker and just add like a hair-like stroke to it. So this is how I like my brows to look. I feel like they're more flattering for my natural brow shape and everything. And that's the brow routine that I do pretty much every single day. Okay, my next tip has to do with eyeshadow. So I just want to mention this palette right here from Milani. This is the Gilded Mini palette. This is a very good companion palette to anything with a more colorful color story. Like if you're wanting to wear a colorful eyeshadow on the lid, but you want something a little bit more neutral to kind of ground the look out, because my next tip is to keep colorful shadows on the lid. Now, if you like the colorful shadows anywhere, definitely wear them anywhere. But for a more day-to-day look, sometimes for me, I feel like when I pull a colorful shade up onto like the crease or anything, that's when I feel like I start to look a little bit clown-like or silly if I don't put a lot of care into the eye look, and that's not what I'm going for. But for day to day, I want to keep my colorful shimmer shades on the lid. So I will show you guys what I'm talking about today, but if you've seen any of my makeup videos where I put makeup on, or you've just seen my makeup looks, you will notice that that is a theme for my makeup style. That's just how I like to wear makeup, especially because my eyes are smaller. I find that it also, with deeper shades, that's a great tip because it helps me not have my eyes look so small and closed off. Okay, I'm thinking for my colorful shade, I'm gonna pick one of the shimmers from this Nomad Cartagena palette, and I'm thinking maybe De Soledad because I swatched that one recently and I want to use it. Now, this palette in particular has really good matte shades to ground the looks in my opinion, but I want to point out, you know, a couple of palettes like this one from Huda. I pretty much always use the Milani palette to go with it because the mattes in this palette are so pink toned and so cool toned that sometimes it's not really what I'm wanting. Like I sometimes don't want to put this baby pink shade all over the crease because I find that it doesn't really give me that everyday sort of a look that I'm wanting. Another great example for this, so again from Nomad, the Iceland Fire and Ice palette. This is one that I feel like I use with the Milani palette a lot or something similar because none of these matte shades are what I would consider to be like a grounding shade for my style of makeup. Now, this is a very well curated color story, especially if you want the different juxtaposition, I guess, of like a cool tone with a warm tone on this column. But for me, I want a more neutral crease and transition shade. So this is a great palette to use as an example for that as well. And this green shade actually is looking very, very pretty. So you know what? I think I'll show it with this palette maybe. And then another shade I was thinking of would be from this Nearly Natural palette. Now this one's a little bit more of a neutral palette, of course, but this shade here, I would say, can look a little bit intimidating, at least to me, but wearing it with more neutral shades can really help it, you know, pop a little bit, but make it more wearable too. Okay, yes, I do think I'm gonna dip into this palette here just to show you guys as an example. So what I want to do is start out, like I said, with the Milani palette and kind of build a foundation for the colorful shadow. And I like to start out with the lightest matte shade. If your skin is deeper than mine, you might want to start out with like the second lightest or even the third lightest, just depending, but something that's the closest to your skin tone, I would say. But I would keep it maybe one shade lighter even than your skin tone. So that's why I'm starting out with the lightest shade, just because I do have fair skin. And I'm putting this in the crease. I'm also bringing it all the way up to the brow. I find that this really helps blend shadows. So if you put something on that's a bit deeper, it can really blend into this and help you out without it looking patchy. I'm also going to go ahead and run this along the lower lash line. Putting eyeshadow on the lower lash line, even if it's a your skin tone shade, I feel like is the only thing that keeps my makeup truly from creasing. Like I powdered, but it didn't keep that one little line there. But when I put eyeshadow on top, it's like you can't even tell that there was ever a crease. Then I'm dipping into the next lightest shade here in the palette. I'm gonna put this in the crease. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I want the shimmer shade to really be like the star of the show here. So I'm just creating like a pretty simple base to then showcase the shimmer shade on. But keeping more neutral tones in the crease is really just the key to this whole tip of putting your shimmer shade just on the lid. Now, I tend to always use NYX glitter glue with my shimmer shades, so I'm going to use that today. But you can also just like wet the brush if you want to, or wet your finger once you've put the shadow on it. But this from NYX is so inexpensive. I think it's like $6 and it'll last you for a really long time, that I find it's really worth it. If you do pick this up though, when you screw the cap on, don't try to tighten it with all your might, because that product will end up breaking when you get close to the end of it if you tighten it too tight. So I'm trying this time to tighten it, you know, enough to keep it fresh, but not too much. So I'm just adding the NYX glitter glue to my lid. I just put a little dot of it on my finger. I spread it between my two fingers, and then I use that for either eye. It just helps your shimmer shades really stick to it. And if you notice that you have shimmer shades that get on your face a lot, or if you're doing a really colorful look, try doing your eye makeup first. That is another great tip to do, but for today, I just wanted to do it kind of as we're doing it now with like face makeup and then eye makeup. So now I'm ready for a more colorful shimmer shade. And I'm kind of wanting to use this one called Northern Lights, just because it is a little bit more of a vibrant color, but hopefully I can show you that it can actually be a wearable, you know, shade if you just keep it on your eyelid. So I'm just going to press this as close to the lash line as I can. Obviously, I just picked it up with my finger, but I'm not going to bring it up into the crease. I actually don't wear this shade a lot because it is so colorful, and I tend to go for like a more toned down color for myself, but I still think this is a really pretty shade. So I want to use the brush I just used with the brown shades from the Milani palette, and I want to just blend the crease now. I'm not adding any more product. I'm just taking this and running it through like right on top of my eyeball where the socket is. You can really just let your brush kind of rest in that area. And I'm just going to make sure that the top of the green shade is really blended into the crease, but it's not coming up above my eye. Like when my eyes are fully open, you can just see the tiniest little bit of the color, but it's not coming up in this area here. And then to even make it more wearable, I'll pick up another shade from the same just neutral palette. And they, of course, don't have to use the Milani one. You can just reach into neutral shades that are just in your collection. And I am actually going to get another brush just because I got a little bit of green on that one when I was blending it out. But I want to pick up one of the more mid-tone brown shades. Again, if your skin is deeper than mine, you might want to pick up one that's deeper than this to give you some definition. But I'm wanting this to add a bit of definition to the outer corner of the lid. And I'm going to blend this up into the outer portion of the crease as well, just to blend it out very well. So you can see I still have a very bright, vibrant pop of color, but I find this to be a lot more wearable than if you were to pull it up too far on the eyelids. So my next tips are for mascara, but we need to go ahead and finish up the face makeup. So I'm just going to apply some bronzer, blush, and highlight. This is the Too Faced Milk Chocolate Soleil bronzer. We're just going to kind of get the rest of the makeup caught up to speed so we can talk about the next tips. I'm thinking of a few more tips like as I'm actually doing my makeup. So like right now, I've put on a bit too much bronzer, especially on the forehead, and I feel like it looks a little bit funny. So taking the exact same sponge I used earlier, I can just press over that and it will help it blend a bit. And also it will just kind of tone it down some because inevitably my sponge does still have some foundation and concealer from where I applied it earlier. But this is really key to not wanting the sponge to be too damp. I find that that is like the quickest way to ruin a makeup look is if your makeup sponge is just sopping wet, because it's just going to really break apart your makeup. I also always apply bronzer, then highlight, then blush, because I want the blush to be the most pronounced product on the cheeks. And I kind of want the bronzer to be the least pronounced because I want it to just look a bit more natural. I want it to look like maybe I do actually have a little bit of a tan and then I've applied the highlight and the blush on top of it, especially the blush though. So I'm applying highlight. This is the Pixie Highlight Duo in Subtle Sunrise. And then for blush, I'm going to use this one from MAC in the shade Warm Soul. I'm testing these out right now, so I'm not really sure yet what my opinion is of it. But I really like this color. I feel like it looks really pretty, but it was a lot warmer when I actually put it on the cheek versus when I swatched it. So I want to see what it looks like today. If that was just a weird coincidence, I don't know. And I really like to bring my blush over the nose too once I've applied it to the cheeks. Okay, now that we're kind of up to speed here, my next step is of course about mascara, but it's specifically like about mascara with setting spray. I really like to use a setting spray. My current favorite is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. Now this one is more expensive, so today I'm going to use a cheaper alternative just because if you guys are wanting to have a similar look to this, I wanted to use a bit more affordable products, minus the SPF because it's expiring soon. But I love this one from e.l.f. This is the Dewy Coconut Setting Mist. This is the long-lasting one, and I find that it really does help my makeup last, but my tip here is to apply your setting spray before your mascara. I know sometimes it's good to get excited about your eyeshadow look, and you want to go ahead and put mascara on so you can see how it's truly going to look. But if you put mascara on and then spray your setting spray, you're a lot more likely to get mascara all over your lid or underneath your eye because the wetness of the setting spray can make that transfer happen. So I'm going to apply setting spray first. I'm going to use this one from e.l.f. And I'm applying a pretty generous amount because I want this to help my makeup really last a long time. And it's also going to help all of those cheek products sink into the skin. So I'm going to mostly dry this. I'm just using my mirror to kind of fan it off. And then I'm going to use my sponge to press it in a little bit anywhere, especially on the cheeks, that I want it to just make sure it really sinks in very well. Using a very light hand when I do this. And again, making sure my sponge is not too wet. And I'm also going to put this, kind of pat it on the forehead too. So now I've kind of patted all that in. I'm going to let it really sink in. I find that that helps a lot. So now it's time to add mascara. I am going to curl the lashes. I just lately have been really liking the curled lash sort of a look, but you know, you don't have to do this step for sure. My eyelashes are just very straight, so I've been liking to curl them. My next tip is for mascara. This is the Maybelline Falsies Lash Lift one that I'm using. I really like this one, and it's of course a drugstore mascara, but my tip about applying mascara is to look down when you're applying it. I always struggle with getting mascara on the lid, and it's so frustrating. If that happens, you can just let it dry and then buff it away with a spoolie that's on like a brow brush or something. But if you put your mirror like pretty much below your face and apply your mascara looking down, I find that happens a lot less frequently. I'm not gonna say it's perfect, but it's a lot less frequent that I'm having to deal with mascara getting on my lids. And I always go between the top lashes of both eyes. I'll do like 2 or 3 coats on both of the upper lashes. Then I will do the bottom lash mascara, because I only apply like the smallest amount of mascara to the bottom lashes. So I want to take the most time by looking down and applying the mascara to the upper lashes. So like I said, it's not every single time. See, I still got like the tiniest dot, but that is so minute compared to how bad it normally is. Okay, so now I've got 2 full coats of mascara on the upper lashes. So now I'm going to look more straight and apply this to the lower lashes. So let me show you how to get that little dot of mascara off. If you get this, let it dry, finish your mascara, maybe even do your lip product and come back. Since I have like the tiniest little amount, I'm thinking it's already dry. So just take your spoolie, this is the one from the end of my brow product, and just lightly buff that away. And it's like good as new. So that is the best way I have found to do that. If you have a clean spoolie, it'd probably be better, but mine are not. So once you buff it away, sometimes it can take a little bit of the shimmer away from your eyeshadow, but you can always just add a little bit of that back. So if you're gonna do that, I would just pick it up probably with your pinky finger and try to use, you know, a light hand, but you can kind of tap that back and cover up anything that, you know, you buffed away. But it's usually pretty simple to get that off. And then I will take that same brush and just blend right in the crease and make sure that I got it all looking the way that I want it to. So the last thing for the makeup routine is just lips. And I'm actually gonna wipe away what's on my lips now. I've got this like weird line. I had a little bit of foundation get on the lips, and I had some chapstick on them. I always end up with that line. It's so frustrating. So if you guys have any tips for that, let me know down below, because I will try them out. But my favorite way to apply lip products is just to make sure that they're dry. So I will just kind of pat off the moisture from the lips with the back of my hand and make sure that they're dry. And then for the lip product, I just want something really comfortable. Today I'm going to use the Tarte Quench Lip Rescue in the shade Nude. If any of you guys picked up the Revive Beauty products from Alley Glines, these are great ones to use for this type of a look as well. Just something a little bit more comfortable. But I just find applying them to blotted off lips works better. Yes, I just prefer a more neutral looking lip most days. So this is the finished look with all of the tips that I showed with you all. I want to give you a very, very close up for how my skin looks. Also, I hope that this goes without saying, but I have not in this video or any of my videos ever used a filter or anything on my skin to make it look, you know, different than what it naturally is. So what you're seeing is what it looks like. It's definitely not perfect. I have got a lot of redness on the skin especially, but yeah, I just want to point that out. Like, I do not use filters. I would never do that. I feel like that's so not helpful. So this is how the makeup looks after all of that. So to me, I find that the green eyeshadow is just like a nice little pop of color, but it's not overpowering by any means. Let me know what you guys think below. Would you wear this green on your lids and find it to be more wearable? But that's how I get away with using more colorful shades on my lid and feeling very confident in them for like a day-to-day basis. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I do hope that you found some tips in this video that were helpful for you all. I know I said it was going to be 7, but I feel like it ended up being like 10 or 11. So we had a few extra ones in there, but I hope that you guys enjoyed. Again, thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it or found it helpful, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Let me know down below what kind of tips and tricks you have. I could definitely film a video trying your guys' tips and tricks. I could really use one on the lipstick because that drives me insane. But that's all I have for you guys today. I will see you tomorrow with another Vlogmas video. Bye guys.